Welcome, one and all, to San Diego Comic-Con 2023. I'm Tatiana Hollander with Screen Rant, and we are here with comic writer slash genius, Fred Kennedy.
Thank you so much.
How many cons have you been to?
You know, I haven't done a lot of international cons. When I was doing a lot of small press indie stuff, I would try and go to as many shows as I could. But you know, it's amazing when you're like an indie creator from outside of Toronto, people from Chicago aren't necessarily really interested in what you're doing. They're not like, oh, this indie guy from Toronto, let's get all of his historical fantasy books. That's what we're here for. So I did a lot before, and then when I had kids, I had to pare down. But now with Dead Romans, with Shadowline and Image, we've decided we really need to get out there and travel once again. So.
Oh, I love that. I was going to say, you are no stranger to comics, but this may be your biggest con.
Yes, yeah.
Now you're working with Image. Dead Romans is beautiful.
Thank you.
Fabulous story so far. What, aside from your obvious love of history,
Yeah.
inspired this specific story?
When I grew up in Belgium, and I moved to Canada when I was 12, and we lived in this village called Erchy in the Anneau province, and there was a bunch of Roman ruins and Belgii villages nearby. And I remember I was in the 4th grade, and we went on a field trip to see one, and they were like, Julius Caesar was right here. I'm like, I don't know who that is, but that sounds really important. So my mom got me some Asterix and Obelix comics, and that was really the beginning of my love of history. So that is the catalyst for everything that's happened since, I guess.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
My knowledge of Julius Caesar is friends, Romans, countrymen. Lend me your ears.
Yeah.
So you definitely have a leg up on me.
Well, I've watched the series Rome, which is pretty good too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's actually an interesting point too. I was interviewing Teenie Howard once, and we were talking about spoilers, and she went on this big rant about how Rome is a story where you know what's going to happen, but you're still in it, and spoilers don't matter. It's not what happens, it's how it happens, and that made me think that something like Dead Romans with the Teutoburg, the Varian disaster, all that stuff, you could do a story in it, and people will follow along, even though they know it's not going to end very well. So.
What is the most challenging aspect of that when you're diving into something that is real, that really happened, but you're really getting to the nuance of fiction there?
You want to make sure you're not changing the facts of what happened. But one of the problems can be is that there's so many versions of how it went down, so many varying numbers depending on who's writing about it. So the hardest part is just accepting that no matter what you do, people are going to say you did it wrong. So swallowing that and just trying to focus on telling a good story was the big challenge for me.
I love that. And also, Nick is your artist.
Yes.
Beautiful work that he does.
So beautiful.
What is the? How do you guys work in tandem to recreate some of these bloody battles and really personalize them?
I wish I could show you our text chains. They're nonsensical, and we built such a rapport and a bond about what we thought was important. We really focused on giving some real iconic imagery, because there's a lot of iconic imagery that is happening, but really picking which ones to focus on and how to properly frame them. And when I was sending him the script, I focused more on the mood of the panels than actually what was happening, because we were already aware of the plot. But this is how, when the reader opens it and looks at this page, this is how they need to feel. And that was really the big communication relationship with me and Nick.
From the first page, it sets up like epic romance, right? Epic love for Noria, and then also epic like bloody stakes.
Yeah.
In terms of the political
Yeah.
situation. So I love that balance. So can you talk about kind of the dichotomy of love and duty, not just in that sense, but also like being torn between countries or like where you come from, ethnologically speaking?
I think the opening pages are, the whole story is in that opening. Everything that is important happens in that opening story. Because it really comes down to two people that desperately love each other, but didn't communicate properly what they wanted, because they were so focused on just them together. And they're alone in this tent. And when it's just them alone in that tent, it's heaven and it's perfect. But the world doesn't work like that. And there's things that are coming, external forces that are changing them. And if you pay attention to the framing of the shots, and there's a really interesting point that Nick and I thought everyone's going to love this, but I don't think anyone really noticed it. And that was the real frustrating part. They're laying in bed, and then he gets up and he looks out the tent, and he starts talking about the country itself hates us being here. And when he turns back to look at each other, he doesn't have those lovey-dovey eyes anymore. If you notice, his eyes are like almost glowing and predatory, and he looks back at her and he says, they don't want us here. And there's this real shift of him, like, that's the guy that you're going to see for the rest of the story. The only time you see lovey-dovey Arminius with Honoria again is when it's flashbacks for him, but you really see the pain and the love in her as she slowly, unwillingly realizes this guy really is a traitor. And it breaks her heart because he didn't tell her. That's why communication in a relationship
Tell them
is
that you're going to
very
betray
important. Yeah,
everyone.
if you're planning on betraying somebody, make sure you talk to your partner about it, okay? It's important. They need to know.
I love Honoria as a character.
Me too, man.
Can you talk about her, like you just discussed, her understanding who Arminius really is, but also her evolution really
Yeah.
as being this like leading strong woman.
When you write, you get so in love with certain things that you do, and you sometimes spit out these pieces of prose that you think are the most important things ever written. And my favorite line that I've ever written, ever, and I've tweeted about this, is with something Honoria says in issue 4. And she says, I didn't have influence, I was influence. And it's just, because she is this agent, the frumentarii were, depending on the definition, some people said they were a section of the military and they were scouts, and then other people refer to frumentarii as spies and assassins, and that's what she was. And she, and I think that like it's a very human thing, is that we fall in love with things and it blinds us to what's going on. And I don't think that that's even a bad thing. I think that that love and that fantasy and being in touch with that romantic side of your body is what makes life worth living. And that makes her arc so painful to me as a really emotional guy, because she gave into her emotions, she gave into love, and it blew up in her face. And the frustrating thing is, Arminius didn't want to hurt her, but like, the road to hell is paved with the best of intentions. And again, communication in a relationship is very important. That's what it comes down to. And he unknowingly hurt her and put her directly in harm's way. And if you read the story, you can tell he really didn't want that to happen, but he didn't think everything through. And I think that we talk about a lot of dudes being, they're not seeing the big picture all the time. And I think that Arminius, it really displays his emotional immaturity at the situation that he has created, thinking everything will work out. Dude, not everything's going to work out. You know, you didn't take care of everything, okay? Sorry, I really ranted there.
No, I love it though. Speaking of everything working out, there's like one issue left in this 6-issue arc. I think I read issue 5 at like 3:00 in the morning, so it probably came out like, yesterday.
It just came out yesterday.
Yes. So what can you tease about where this is going to end up? I know you said you had another 6-issue arc planned.
We do. You know, it's funny that you meant, because tomorrow I've got a meeting to discuss that arc, to see how things are. I feel like I'm the stick in the mud in our little creative group, because Nick and Allison, our amazing editor, Allison O'Toole, if you ever get a chance to work with her, do it. She's the best. They're all like, it's going to happen. You just got to believe it's going to happen. I'm like, I want to believe, but like, I'm Honoria. I've been hurt. I have been hurt. And I don't know if it will. I would like it to, but I will say that this arc for Dead Romans is huge, sweeping, and epic. I love those 1950s swords and sandals movies, massive sweeping shots. I love all that stuff. The second arc, will be much smaller, much more intimate, and it's I think going to be a much more emotionally driven rather than big epic horns blowing battles, thousands of people marching. It'll be much smaller in its scale with larger consequences. How about that?
I love that.
Yeah,
so
there we go.
like smaller start, bigger explosion at the end there. I love it. Outside of Dead Romans, do you have any thoughts percolating about where you might take a next comic story? Any other locations you want to?
I don't want to give away too much, but I'm working on 2 pitches that I think are pretty strong, and one is it's with my friend Kalman Andruszowski, and I want. There's so much I want because I'm super stoked about it right now, but and I think it's beautiful, and I want to see where it goes. But hopefully, within the next few months, something about that story will get announced. And I will say that it is so completely different than Dead Romans, but it is very character-driven and emotional-driven, and there's a lot of hurt, and there's a lot of feelings. There's also a lot of suede and beige.
Oh.
That's a hint.
Okay. Suede and beige.
Suede and beige.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much
Thank
for coming. Everyone can pick up Dead Romans #6 is August 23rd.
Yep.
Is that the correct? Anywhere that you get Image Comics.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we will be very soon hearing about part 2.
Absolutely.
Next 6-issue arc.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.